Baseball in the Boroughs is brought to you by Verizon. The Yankees are all set to start their first series since the All-Star break, but there are still so many questions surrounding this team heading into the second half of the season, so let's get ourselves some answers. I have our New York Post baseball reporter and writer, Dan Martin, on the line, live from Yankee Stadium. Dan, thanks for hopping on with this, man. I guess we can kind of backtrack before we go forward. 8-18 to finish the first half of the season. They were knocked out of first place in the AL East. They've had some time off because of the All-Star break. So do you think there are any adjustments that Aaron Boone will make or has made to get this team off to a fast start of the second half of the season?
Well, Brandon, there's not a ton they can do right now, certainly that Aaron Boone can do. This is the hand he's dealt. This is the roster that he has right now. We can get into the trade deadline later, but he's messed around with the lineup, but it's to very little effect. But right now, and for too long this season, it's been Soto and Judge and not much else. He's changed leadoff hitters. He's changed cleanup hitters. But, until guys like Gleyber Torres starts hitting and DJ LeMahieu starts hitting, and Anthony Volpe gets back to the form he showed last year, there's only so much Aaron Boone can do if these guys are underperforming. And, what people want him to do, ripping the team in public and just showing a little bit more fire, unless something really drastically changes from his first 6 or so years here as Yankee manager, that's not going to happen. So I wouldn't expect a lot of change when it comes to what he's doing in terms of lineup construction or the rotation. He prefers a steady hand, and obviously he's not afraid to go with it even as the bad stretch got longer and longer.
Okay, so it is what it is at the moment, but the second half to the season historically has been absolutely brutal to this team, as you wrote in your article. Let's say they had a bad second half of the season a year ago when they missed the postseason, and in 2022 they fell off in the second half after a near historic start. But is there anything about this 2024 team that could break that second half curse?
I would say two things off the top of my head. Certainly, Juan Soto being here and playing at the top of his game is one thing. He wasn't here the previous 2 years, so you have an MVP level guy in the middle of the lineup. So you wouldn't think that they would fall off a cliff for an extended period of time. No one saw this 8-18 stretch coming either. And the other thing is the trade deadline. It's less than 2 weeks away. We'll see what they do. They're obviously going to have to make some additions. But this is not the team one would think that they are going to go down the stretch with, because there are so many flaws to it right now, and they've become apparent over the last 3 or 4 weeks. So Brian Cashman will probably address some of those. Look, they have a healthy Aaron Judge. They didn't have that last year. They didn't make any additions last year at the trade deadline because the whole season was a mess and they didn't want to give up any assets. At the 2022 season, it was basically, Judge by himself hitting home runs every day and not much else. There's reason to believe that this will get turned around because, the first 2.5 months of the season was not a mirage. It happened. There was some overperformance there, certainly in the rotation and for some of the lineup. So the key for the second half is to find some consistency and not have these wild ups and downs in the last 2+ months of the season.
Aaron Boone has a team option to return to the dugout in 2025. So fill in these blanks for me, Dan. Boone returns in 2025 if blank, and he doesn't return if blank.
Well, Mike Vaccaro just wrote that today. He basically said he thinks that unless the Yankees come back and win the division, which right now they trail the Orioles going into tonight's game by a game, or make a run in the playoffs, I'd say that's a pretty fair assessment. There's been no talk of making any changes. The Yankees like consistency. Brian Cashman likes Aaron Boone, likes the job that he's done. But look, if they don't make if they don't win the division, I think they'll make the playoffs. That shouldn't be an issue. But if they don't win the division and they don't win a round of the playoffs, I think they at least have to think about making a change there in the dugout, because there just hasn't been a ton of success. Last year was a really bad year for them. They went out and they got Soto, gave up a lot of pitching for him, and they only have him for this year. So I'd say there's going to be some pressure, at least external pressure, on Aaron Boone the rest of the way. What the Yankees are thinking, that's on them. But certainly he's going to have a big spotlight on him the rest of the way and through the playoffs, really, because if they lose in the first round to Cleveland or something like that, the people are going to want his head, whether that's right or whether that's wrong, because there has been a lot of regular season success is up for debate. But the reality is there hasn't been a lot of October success. And with this team and this payroll and Juan Soto for 1 year, they need to get something done.
All right, we're about 11 days away from the trade deadline. You think Brian Cashman is going to make a bold move and possibly bring in some bullpen help?
Well, I think there's definitely going to be some bullpen help. But I think there could be some other moves to boost the lineup, because LeMahieu has just not looked like a major league hitter for much of the year since coming back from another foot injury. And Gleyber Torres, who's going to be a free agent, he's really struggled. So they've given these guys a lot of time to figure themselves out. Now they have 12 days left or less than that, 11 days left to kind of scour the landscapes, see what's out there. What the challenge this year and in years going forward is that because of the added wildcard teams, there's only so many teams that are willing to sell. There's a lot more buyers than sellers, so they're going to have a lot of competition for anyone that's on the market. But I think that Cashman has shown in the past when he likes a team, he'll go for it. And I think he likes this team. Like I said before, Juan Soto, they only have him for 1 year. So you might as well go for it while you have him, because there's no guarantee he's coming back. So yeah, I think there will be significant changes before the deadline.
We're back to baseball in the Bronx. They open up their series tonight against the Rays. Can you preview that series for us? And would you say there's pressure on the Yankees to win this series?
I would say there's pressure on them to just start playing better overall. Whether the break came at a good time or not, they won 2 games against Baltimore. They kind of started feeling good about themselves, and then they ended it on this horrendous note with this terrible loss the last game of the first half in Baltimore. The Rays could have a good fight against the Yankees. So this is going to be a good test for them. The Rays have good pitching. The Yankees have their rotation lined up the way they want. The rotation has really been bad for basically the last month after being really good for 2 months. So we'll see. We'll see if Garrett Cole gets back into form that he hasn't really shown, which he had last year when he won the Cy Young. So that's been something else that hasn't quite clicked for them yet. He's been better in 2 of his last 3 starts, but they're going to need him to be like a Cy Young pitcher for the last couple of months of the season. So, do they need to win this series? Probably not, but they need to certainly split it because they just need to change the narrative. They can't win series these days, and just there's a lot of bad vibes around the team. I'd say there's going to be a lot of focus on how they do, and just because of the trade deadline coming up, are they going to start making moves, or are they going to rely on the guys that have gotten them this far?
It's Rays Yankees tonight at Yankee Stadium at 7:05 p.m. Dan Martin, thanks for hopping on with us, man.
Thanks, Brandon. Anytime.